Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar based on the autumn budget, which came out yesterday. We always do the webinar, not much happened, but we will share with you the updates, what has happened, how it could affect you, and as a business owner, what you should be thinking about for the not so distant future as well. Just before we go to Adam firstly, actually, let me welcome Adam and Joe. So, Adam, welcome. Adam's our tax manager at Nordens.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you. And Joe, thanks for coming on. Joe is our advisory director at Nordens and specializes in giving business owners advisory services to help them achieve their goals. So welcome, Joe, for coming
Hi,
on.
everyone. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you. So I just want to start with a really interesting fact, actually, about the budget. So the first televised budget was actually 1990 with John Major. So just wanted to share that. I thought that's quite an interesting fact. I don't know how correct it is, but don't hold me to it. But I thought I'd share and open it with a nice fact. So I'm going to bring in Adam. Adam, we've spoken about it already. The only,
Yes.
I guess the only thing that the fun thing about yesterday was the Shadow Chancellor's response, I guess, to Jeremy Hunt, which I thought was relatively funny.
She laid into him a bit, didn't she? She didn't hold back.
Yeah, lots of oohs and ahs, which was interesting. But do you want to just sort of summarize? And I may pop up with some questions, or if anyone listening has got any questions to ask as we go through, then so be it. But yeah, do you want to just go through what's changed? Or
Not a whole lot. I'll be honest with you. There was a lot of things promised that weren't even mentioned, weren't delivered on, and that there were some changes, obviously, but I think there was a lot of stuff battered around beforehand, which just never came to fruition. And yeah, but main changes, we can go into that a bit later. The main changes are, biggest ones are probably the national insurance cuts. There's sort of been national insurance cuts all over the board. So self-employment, for example, the class 2, which has been around for forever and a day, is no longer a thing. So that's just being completely abolished, and it's all going to be through class 4. So class 2 is completely gone, and class 4 is coming down a percentage, so from 9% down to 8%. That's on profits over 12.5, same as the personal allowance now. So it will save self-employed people some money. There's about £300 sort of plus there to be saved a year for the self-employed. People who usually make the class 2 voluntary contributions can continue doing that if they choose to. It's a matter of opinion of whether or not there's any point to do that, but for some people there is a benefit to it. Sticking on national insurance, the national insurance for employees, the class 1, has been reduced as well. That's come down 2%, which has been quite a good decrease. Once again, he did lay them out kind of on the average employees, but it's saving about £400 to £600 per year for the average employee, average fee earner, throughout the year. So that's sort of kind of the main tax cuts, so to speak, was mostly just on national insurance, and they were brought down. Minimum wage is set to increase as well to £11.44 per hour. So it's quite a big jump, to be honest, and it's obviously going to help a lot of people who are on minimum wage. They are going to start getting some more help on that. Speaking of the lower end as well, the benefits are going to be increased. So universal and credits are going to be increased. Off the top of my head, I can't remember now what percentage he said by. It's about 6%. He's going to increase universal credits by, and housing allowance as well. The housing allowance that people get through universal credits is going to be increased to be more realistic, which should have been done probably quite a while ago, but is now being increased to be more realistic on that. So a lot of help for kind of the other end of the spectrum. I know there was a lot of talk beforehand about benefits being cut or being stripped and stuff like that. So a lot of people were worried, but actually he has increased them and he has done quite a bit to help. there is some caveats obviously coming with all of this, as there always is. So with the benefit scheme, they're going to introduce a new sort of working regime where you are actively helped to find a job. There'll be some what they call intense kind of instructing, some training and stuff like that to help you find a job. If you haven't found a job within 18 months with their help, it then moves on to compulsory, mandatory kind of courses, and maybe, I don't know, they might find you a job themselves kind of thing, which after 6 months, if you're still refusing to do that, they then stop your benefits altogether. There's a lot around this. I could do a whole another kind of webinar on it. There's a lot about whether this is right or whether it's wrong, whether they're pushing people into work who can't work. No, there's a lot about it, but that is what they're doing. They haven't given us the finer details on it yet. So there may be some exemptions. They may say, no, if you meet X, Y, Z criteria, you don't have to look for work. You know, you're on it for whatever. My opinion, I presume there's got to be something like that, because obviously there's some disabilities and mental disabilities, physical disabilities, which mean you can't work.
So I guess not to panic until the actual detail is out.
Yeah, I wouldn't automatically sit there. It's not coming in tomorrow either. It's not coming until next year. So it's not like all of a sudden tomorrow you've got to start looking for a job. There will be more detail on it. And I can't imagine it's going to be a situation where every single person who is on universal credits is now going to have to go find a job. There is obviously there's a spectrum there, and depending on where you are on that spectrum, you know, is where you'll place. I've worked a lot with universal credits before, you know, helping clients and stuff like that, and they are usually pretty understanding and will help you. So yeah, I wouldn't, anyone who's in that position, I wouldn't sit there panicking that, you know, it's all going to end tomorrow. They are there to help you, and I'm sure there'll be more details to come on it. So what else can we go into?
Well, one thing I'm quite interested to ask, Adam, is about the research and development.
Yeah,
because there's obviously been a lot of talk within research and development with HMRC and how they're, you know, really upping their game in making sure fraudulent claims don't go through. Well, I know there's been some changes in that, or maybe lack of changes in that, or
yeah.
Can you? Because I think
I mean, in this budget, I think it was about 4 lines in total said about R&D, which we still, anyone who's sort of involved in R&D knew was coming. There's been a lot of changes to R&D previously over the last sort of year and a half. A lot of changes, a lot of crackdown on fraudulent claims. Anyone who's sort of involved in doing R&D claims will tell you the same thing of it is a lot stricter now. The rules are a lot more kind of restricted and enforced now, to be honest. I can pretty much guarantee if you're doing an R&D claim, you're going to get questions asked, which, you know, is good in a way, because it does weed out the kind of the fraudulent claims. And I'm sure, as it always is with HMRC, it's all kind of hot and heavy now to crack down on it all. But once people start getting in line and start doing the correct claims and everything like that, it probably will calm down a bit, I imagine, in a year or so. But yesterday, they basically said that they're going to merge the two schemes. So at the minute, you've got SME schemes for the smaller companies and RDEC for the bigger companies. They're essentially going to merge them, so there's just one uniformed way to do a R&D claim. What exactly that will look like, don't know at this moment in time. I imagine it's probably going to be a combination of the two. But yeah, they're streamlining it. They're making it all one thing, because at the moment there is kind of, when you do an R&D scheme at the moment, you have to decide whether you're falling under a small scheme or under an RDEC scheme. Both of them come with completely different rules, and there's a lot of kind of to and fro of where you kind of sit within that. So streamline will help. And then they're also reducing the tax rate for loss-making companies to 19% down from 25%. So that will obviously mean a bigger claim for yourself, and that if you qualify for it.
Good.
Yeah.
So did you want to touch on any more points, because we've had a question?
If I can just do one, is probably the biggest thing to come out of the budget, which is the making of the 100% claim for for plant and machinery, assets, your capital allowances, essentially, making that permanent. So originally we had super deduction during COVID to help people, and then after COVID, I think it was last budget, might have been the November one just before, they introduced the 100% allowance, which means you can claim 100% of the cost. You buy something for £100,000, you get £20,000 off your tax bill. That is now permanent for the foreseeable future, which is probably the biggest change to come out, because it will help a lot of people, a lot of businesses. It will help in their corporation tax and to bring that down. So that was quite a big change, which I personally didn't expect, but was very welcome change.
Yeah. The other thing that they've done is extended the business rates discount, haven't they? I think
they have, yes. Yeah. So the 75% for the hospitality, leisure, and I've forgotten the other word. Retail, that's it. Retail word escaped me then.
There you go.
Retail, hospitality, and leisure. So that includes your shops, your restaurants, cafes, gyms, spas, hotels, all of that lot. They can at the moment get up to £110,000, 75% of your bill up to £110,000 off your business rates, which obviously through COVID and everything like that was a huge benefit to them.
It really helped a lot of businesses.
It did, yes. Yeah. I know there was a lot of businesses that were really struggling. Obviously, none of the shops, none of the restaurants were open for a good while and stuff like that. It really helped. It was a really big thing to come out of previous thingies, but they have extended that for another year. So that's another year of relief for people to help, and help them even further get back to where they were.
Yeah. That's good. And I think for anyone who wants more detail of any of these, I don't think too much has changed or too much has come in, but reach out and we'll or after this anyway, we'll be sending something out. And yeah, we can go into more detail with it and how it would affect you and if it affects you, your own personal situation. But a question, Adam, that we've had is about the corporation tax changes kicking in and the associated company rules. Just to sort of elaborate on those, just because this person isn't necessarily clear on that.
Absolutely, yeah. So this was a rule that's brought in a while ago. For any of us who's kind of been in the game or been in the business for a long time, will remember we had something very similar to this a long time ago, which got scrapped and is now back. So what essentially happens is if a company has the same ultimate control or combination of ultimate control, so if Mr. and Mrs. are holding company A and company B, it's the same ultimate control. So them two companies, even though they're not directly linked, are associated companies. And then what happens with that is it decides kind of your percentage of tax. So the way tax works for corporation tax at the moment is under 50k is 19%, above 250k is 25%, and in between 50 and 250 is kind of it's a pro-rata thing. The closer you get to 250, the more it goes up. So it goes 20%, 21%, so on and so forth. What happens is when you have associated companies, you start splitting that allowance between the companies. So if you've got two associated companies where you'd usually hit 25% at 250 grand, you now hit 25% at 125 grand. You got three companies, that's what, 83, 333, so on and so forth. More associated companies you've got, that them allowances get split between them companies. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a group. There's a lot of kind of confusion around what's a group, what's associated. So a group is when company A owns company B, C, D, so on and so forth. They're obviously all automatically associated because they are the same group. Associated companies go outside of groups as well. So just because they're not in a group, if you personally hold three companies in your name, they're associated because you hold them all. And it can be made of a combination as well. So for example, with us three sitting in here right now, if the three of us owned three companies together and we all held a third of them shares, that is associated as well because it's the same ultimate control.
Okay. Good. And I think that it's something that is probably it it sounds more complicated than what it actually is.
It
And I
is.
think that
Sorry, go on.
no, carry on.
No, I was going to say it's one of them things of it takes a moment for you to get your head around. There's a lot of sitting there going, "What?" You know, once you've got your head around it, it's quite simple then to follow. You know, you once you know what you're looking for, it is simple.
Yeah. No, thank you. And I think that will hopefully simplify it slightly. And I think if anyone's got any more questions regarding that, just reach out again. Like we can look at your own personal situation and see what the situation is.
Sorry, one little thing I should add to that is, sorry, dormant companies don't count. So if you've got a company and it's dormant, it's not associated. You can ignore it.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. And other than that, there's not really been many changes. Like, it was a bit of an anti-climax budget. There was loads of hype, loads of hype. Not really much going on. But what I will say is that, and the reason why I thought it'd be good to get Joe on the call, I'm sure you'd agree, Adam, is that with the general election next year,
there will be changes.
There's going to be changes, right? And we don't know what they are. I'm sure that the press will pick, they'll leak stuff to the press over the sort of, before the March budget. But it's a bit unpredictable. And I think it's really important as a business owner to actually plan for the future. And it's what Joe does day in, day out. So Joe, I want to bring you in because, like I said, I think forward planning and is really key in the current climate that we're in, especially with the changes that could come next year. So I mean, what would you be what are you advising your clients to do? And I guess anyone watching, what would you be advising at the minute?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think when we're on our journey with our clients, when we're advising business owners, we're generally following sort of 7 key principles, which we generally would say are the 7 deadly sins of businesses that are struggling, or the 7 key success factors of those that are doing well. And there are businesses out there that are doing well. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there at the moment, but there are businesses out there that are doing well in these times. It is more challenging though. There's no doubt about that. We've all alluded to that already on the call. But if I go through the sort of 7 key facts and just give you a real headline sort of introduction about things where I think business owners should be focusing right now, based on the budget, doesn't really make a lot of difference, as you've both have alluded to. There wasn't a load of major changes. There were some changes, but nothing extreme. But like you've both alluded to as well, there could be further changes on the horizon which would have a bigger impact. So the first thing that I would sort of look at would be having a clear vision and that longer term goal. So I do appreciate that now is probably more challenging than ever to have any real confidence in the longer term, but it's probably, on the flip side, it's probably more important than ever to have something to be striving for, to sort of keep you focused and help you make better decisions as you're going along. And one of the things we often use is that analogy of the sat nav in the car. Rarely would people get into a car without a destination in mind, but that is what a lot of people can do in their business at times when they get too bogged down, especially when there's a lot of pressure. So you kind of use the sat nav to set your destination, and that's where, working with advisors such as ourselves can help you set that destination, fully understand it, and then you can work together to fill the remaining route in. So from where you are now to where you want to get to, that end destination, it's just so important. So that would be the first thing that I would be looking at focusing on right now in your business. If you're not totally clear on your vision and your longer term goal, I think it's something to sit down with your fellow business partners, or sit down with an advisor, or both, and sort of thrash that out a little bit more so you're a bit clearer, because it will really help you make better decisions. The next thing is a pretty straightforward one: your sales and marketing. Understanding your customer, your target market, and the channels that you're currently using are just so important. The more that you can define those ideal users of your product or your service, the less spend will be wasted in today's times and climate. That's essential, and the more often you're likely to achieve success. So again, create that sales and marketing plan and budget for the year ahead, and consider any channels that you haven't yet tapped into. Times are changing. Back in the day, there was the one and only or two and only ways to market. Now there's lots of different things popping up, and it's important that you sort of define and shout about why your business is different as well, so customers have that clear argument about why they want to buy from you and not necessarily the competition. And it's also coming back to the channels. It's also important that, you know, things that may not have worked for you before might now actually be really relevant. So it's just really having a deeper understanding of the market that you're operating in and that target customer. So probably well, it's tough because arguably I'd say the most important thing though is your cash flow. You know, the amount of webinars we've done that have focused on cash flow, it's the number one reason businesses fail. Every business should still be using that cash budget or a better version of the cash budget that they built during COVID, or they had one ideally before, just so you're aware of when those pinch points are likely to arrive. You know, for those businesses that are doing well, like I say, there are businesses out there. You can also use this to identify investment opportunities. You know, there's a lot of talk about the downside, but, you know, there are upsides at the moment. You know, interest rates are high, you know, investment opportunities are available, you know, so there is a market out there. So it's about understanding how to use make the best of the surplus cash that you have when you have it. It's a nice thing to be looking at. But of course, for the businesses on the flip side that are struggling, you need to be able to make decisions. You need to know when them pinch points are, and building a cash flow forecast is a complete and utter essential in your business arsenal right now. It's also really important wherever possible to build that relationship with your bank, with funding providers as early as possible and in as much detail as possible, because if they're on board with you and they understand where you're going, you know, it's going to be so much easier to have that conversation, ideally ahead of time, so you're set up and you know it's not going to be critical for your business. You know,
I think just to add to that as well, Joe, I think with a lot of funding and banks, what we found during, I'm going to mention it, I shouldn't, I'm really sorry everyone, COVID, right? What we found is when there was actually a time of need and people and businesses needed funding, that their books and their records weren't up to date and they weren't able to provide good quality information, so I know Joe's just mentioned, you know, building relationship with banks, cash flow. I think it's so important that everyone has good record, good information to hand, and up-to-date information to be able to provide, and not just that, but to be able to use it for your own decision making as well. Sorry, Joe, I just wanted to jump in.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And the other thing, the next thing flows in quite nicely to it, your profitability. You know, stress test your business model as it currently stands, look at ways to pivot, look at ways you have pivoted, and analyze whether this is actually working for you. You know, looking at your costs on a regular basis, because when we think about, you know, how much costs have been going up recently, you know, even if you're just standing still and doing the same level of turnover, you're actually falling behind because everything else is going up, barring your turnover. So you need to be conscious of that and look at increasing your prices. But of course, it's tough for everyone out there. So, you know, there's price elasticity, there's businesses and customers that may not now be able to afford your product. So rather than losing them completely, have a look to see if there's a way you can perhaps dilute your offering to still give them something, still keep them as a paying customer or paying client, but you're not losing out because you're not now over servicing them, so to speak, or over providing them. So it's really, really important to have your finger on the pulse there to make sure that your business in its current model still stacks up. Another thing that I think all businesses should be looking at is their systems and processes. I mean, people that know me, people that have spent time with me, Mitch and Adam included, you're probably sick to death of me talking about the word systems and processes, but I can't emphasize how important they are for a well-run business, you know, and the businesses that I've worked with over the years, that is one of the commonalities. You know, they've got really, really clear systems and processes in place. They're consistent, they're easy to follow, and it will just ultimately help your business stay effective, your business stay consistent, which will enable people to have trust in you in the business. But it will also, if you're looking longer term to put your business in a position where you're able to sell it or exit, it just perfectly aligns with that. You know, the amount of businesses that they're at a point where they're like, you know what, I've had enough now, or I want to exit, or I want to move on to a new venture, and their underlying business falls apart without them there. So without those systems and processes, it means that your business is really it loses a lot of value, put it that way. One way that you can really fast forward this process now, though, is through using technology. You know, it's developing in some really, really good ways, tools such as ChatGPT, forms of automations that are out there. You know, there's a lot of things out there that can benefit you. But I think to avoid rushing in and just going, right, we're going to place complete reliance on all these softwares and pieces of software, automations, we want to do this, it's very easy to run wild with it. I think what I would recommend is find something that you feel will add easy benefit to your business straight away, the low hanging fruit, so to speak, and test it on a small part of your business or in a small way so you can truly see the benefit will be there. Because you can be tempted to just roll everything out all in one go, and that might actually cause more problems than it actually solves. So just be conscious, but I definitely think businesses should be looking at exploring technology and not resist it or back away from it. And the best place to really start is look at your business, analyze it, and say, what can we actually simplify in our business, and what's the easiest and quickest thing that we can simplify that will get us the best results. I know we've done a lot of that internally. Mitch, you might want to elaborate on anything that we've done, but it's just something that you need to be conscious of, because it's not going away. It's here to stay.
And also, and if we touch on the the purpose of this webinar is the budget. The government want businesses to innovate, hence the R&D. So I think there are tax breaks, there are things you can do to be able to get the benefits of what the government are putting there as well. So innovation is key, and I think people should be looking at R&D and tech as well. I'm not going to go into what we're doing too much, but if anyone is watching that wants to sort of have a look at the system, us to have a look at systems and sort of give our thoughts on how we can advise any benefits to bringing in technology and so on, then again, feel free to get in touch. But
yeah. And a couple more things on the 7 things we'll generally be looking at is team and culture. There's more pressure than ever for everyone in your team, in your business, to be delivering to a required level, and the benchmark for that required level seems to be going up and up because people just have higher expectations. People want things done quicker, and because of that, you need to really be sure of 2 things in your business. I think first and foremost, your culture is really clear, it's consistent, and it's strong. That way, it's just so much easier to manage everyone's expectations. And it will also help you confirm that you have the right people within your business. So just ask yourself, do the people in your business align with your culture and your values? And if you don't have those sort of clear and written down, it's going to be difficult for them to do that. So I would look at that. And also, just analysing whether everyone in your business is actually sitting in the right seat, because they might be the right person, but they might not be in the right role. So I think that's something to be really conscious of. Obviously, the things that Adam's mentioned relating to the budget, that will affect your costs in respect of your team. It's not going to affect them hugely significantly, but it will have an effect. And the bigger the business that you are, the more it will have an effect, of course. But I think, again, that's something that you can plot into your forecast. But I think just understanding whether the people are the right people, but also the people that are in the right seat. And it's worth noting as well that when businesses evolve, certain people that were right at that stage of the business were perhaps not right anymore for the current stage that you're at, or the stage you're about to go into. And it's not ever really about the people personally. This is a business decision, and I think that's where a lot of people and businesses, and it is tough. It's hard because you get on generally with the people in your business, and it's very difficult to make those tough decisions. But again, when we talk about commonalities of business owners and businesses that have been successful, that is one of the things that they're able to do, and they're able to remove that emotion from their business, sort of disattach and make the right business decision, no matter how difficult it might be. So easier said than done, of course, but I think that's 2 things that you can look to do to sort of start that process to make sure you do have the right team, the right culture, and the right overall setup in that respect. And I suppose the last thing to touch on would be the sort of the mindset. There's been we've done so many webinars, and a lot of them have been based around upheaval, uncertainty. There's a lot of things that have happened, a lot of things that have never happened before, and a lot of businesses to me are still in survival mode, and it's completely understandable. But like I sort of said at the start, I think being in survival mode for too long, you can get sucked back into just working day by day and not having that vision for the longer term. So I think that's where it's so important to surround yourself with people that you really trust, that can give you that are not attached to your business in any other way than just being your friend or your colleague or someone that you work with. And it's just understanding what it is that you want to achieve, and having people to lean on to just help you clarify it and take that emotion away from it. And also, as a business owner, everyone is often looking to you for answers, which is nowadays tougher than ever to be totally confident on anything. So, so it is important, during these times more than ever that you do have that trusted support network. It's something that me, Mitch, and everyone have been on the webinars with us over the last few years have really, really emphasised, and it's not lost any of its importance. But I suppose to summarise sort of everything up, I mean, the starting point would be, have a think, have a rethink where it is that you want to go, and work with someone to make sure you can plot that out in a financial forecast. So you have your cash flow, you have your profit forecast, so you can actually see, does it make sense? Can I actually get there? Is it realistic? And have that base, best and worst case scenario so you can feel so much more comfortable. We do this exercise, like Mitch alluded to, with so many business owners. And once they actually see it, it makes their lives, I would say, a lot easier to make better decisions. And I would just say they have a significantly higher degree of comfort once they've seen it. So I really think if you are a business owner out there and you don't have this in place, it will make your life so much easier.
I agree. And just touching on the mindset and survival mode, I think although literally it was a really, like we said, it was an anti-climax budget, it was very growth focused. Though that's one thing I will say. Whereas if you look, over the last few years, it's always been about survival and this is what we can offer you to survive and so on. Whereas he spent a lot of his time talking about growing and growth, which I thought was at least a little bit positive, which was really good, which kind of, I mean, that's great from both of you. So thank you. But I guess where I wanted to go next, I mean, I've looked at a lot of the questions and I think we've touched on those anyway, so I won't go into them. But one thing that affected everybody over the last few years is interest rates. It's currently at 5.25%. I mean, Joe, you work with banks, you work with lenders. I mean, what's your predictions, or where do you think I know it's a difficult question because no one really knows, but they have come out and said something, haven't they? But I guess, where do you see it going? What would you do? I mean, cash flow forecasting, isn't it, really is key?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you've got to have that understanding first and foremost of the impact of where the rates are currently now, and then apply a level of flexibility. But like you say, all the things we're talking about business wise, it's about how it all impacts you personally as well. So it's a really, really good point in the sense of, look, a lot of people are still on low fixed rate mortgages, for example. In the next couple of years that might not be the case, and they might not be able to get the mortgages anywhere near the level. But in terms of percentages, interest rates currently 5.25%. By the end of next year, expectations are they're going to be around the 4.25% mark. So there is a positive movement in the sense of they're looking to decline. But again, like you said, it's subjective. No one knows for sure. But the aim will be that by the end of 2025, they'll sort of normalize around 3%. So that's what that's a word on the street is, so to speak, or that's what the analysts are saying. But again, 3% is still much more significant than what we've been used to over the last, 10 or so years. So
I was going to say this. I think a lot of people need to kind of be aware that we had 10 years, like they say, of really good interest rates.
Yeah.
But it swings and roundabouts. They were amazingly good interest rates. It's not always going to be that low. That wasn't the norm. That was outside the norm to our benefit, but it wasn't the normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, but I think it's probably worth saying that, in what Joe said before about cash flow, I mean, that's so key and you probably, putting what if analysis, risk analysis sort of alongside them to be like, what if interest rates stay high? What if they drop to 3%? What if they go to stay at 4%? Just so you can see the impact it has. Which can be built off the back of forecasting. So forecasting is extremely key, especially in in any sort of, whether it's growth, whether it's survival, it's still really, really key. So I'm going to strongly say that I think it's something we really push to our clients. Forecasting is massive. Please, make sure that you're doing that. But just quickly, I want to touch on inflation as well. That's obviously been talk of the town. Inflation. They come out saying they're halving inflation and so on. What's your thoughts on it? Where do you think it's going?
Hard to say. It's a bit like interest, isn't it, really? I do think it will come down more. I think it will come down more. They're doing things, whether they work or not, who knows. But touch wood, they have delivered on what they said. They said they'd halve it. They have halved it.
How do you think it will impact
Sorry, Mitch, I missed that, mate. You froze up
and
for a second.
what should business owners be doing off the back of it? I guess that's more of a question.
I think it cracked up a bit, but yeah. But I think again, I mean, inflation's always been there in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, recently it's been a huge level, and it's like Adam said, it's coming down. It's at like 4.6 in the year to October, 4.6% at the moment. You know, the bank have come out and said that they expect it to fall to about 4.5 by the end of 2023. So there's not a huge change between now and then, and they're optimistic that it's going to continue to fall. So it's going to go back down towards the target that the government have said. But yeah, of course,
they want it about 2%, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah, they set a target of 2%. They believe that's going to be hit by the end, like during 2025. So that's quite a long way away from now. But I think it's understanding the impact of all the historic inflation to date, you know, and kind of resetting your business to align it with that. Like I sort of said earlier about your prices, it's not just me saying, oh, well, you know, adopt a blanket price increase, but you have to look at the price to value or the price to cost that you're delivering to your clients or your customers, because, you know, if all your costs are going up and your prices are not following suit, you know, something has to give, or you're not going to be as profitable as a business. So I think it's just that sort of modeling it out, mapping it out, and like Mitch was alluding to earlier, you know, doing test scenarios to say, well, look, what if inflation stays the same and all our prices go up by X, all our costs, go up by X, or some of our costs go up by X? What does that mean for our business? And when you start playing around with different scenarios, you know, you can be left with that base, best and worst case. And then all of a sudden, if you're comfortable with the worst case, you know, you're in a really good position. You feel so much more comfortable. So I think that's it, because it's one of them real unknowns. Although the trend is positive in a downwards way in terms of inflation, it's still worth, you know, having that buffer in place just to protect against any sort of volatility in the coming years. But I mean, the predictions are that they'll hit that growth target of 2% during 2025 at some point. So it's a year and a half. I mean, the signs are good. There is positive movement, but even today, the energy price cap's been up by 5%? I think that's gone up by. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into the forthcoming inflation figures. But I just think it's one of them. If you've got a really wide, holistic overall view of your business, you should be able to combat these, because they shouldn't be critical at a point where you're just not aware of it. It should have been sort of planned in. You know, you're aware of it. You've built up those relationships to put sort of blockers in place to stop it becoming critical, if that makes sense. So I just think it's one of them where knowing your numbers and knowing your business inside out is more important than ever.
And actually, as well, I've spoken to a lot of business owners and over the years, and when you kind of look at it and say your prices need to go up, and they're like, oh, you know, yeah, I'll do it, I'll get round to it. Well, I mean, what an opportunity to actually get into your business and actually make those changes that you need to make to be able to take your business to the next level, whether it's cost related or growth related. I think it's, you know, it's a really great opportunity. And, you know, I think through COVID as well, we were going through, you know, what we were going through. I think the business owners that actually saw it as an opportunity are the ones that have come out and absolutely thriving off the back of it, because they were able to really lean up and come out fighting almost, I hate the word, but pivot. We used it a lot, kind of pivot through. And some of them had to pivot 2, 3, 4 times to be able to get to the right place. And I think now, again, we're still in the same sort of, we're in the same place, except it's slightly, I'll say it's more, but it's a lot more promising than where it was, obviously. And I think now's another great opportunity to actually make some really good changes, you know, with all the R&D things that are out there, the opportunity to innovate with what, you know, what the government are trying to do. I think it's a great opportunity. I think I'll leave it there. I think we've covered quite a lot. But thank you, Joe. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. If anyone has any questions or any further or want to get in touch and go through your own individual circumstances, then please feel free to reach out. You can do that via email if you're already with us, or via our website if you're not. And yeah, thank you for coming on and watching. And again, thank you both. And here's to a growing 2024.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one.